Who's a character you despised as a kid, but now as an adult, you totally understand? King Triton. God, Ariel's so naive to me now as an adult. She doesn't know this dude aside from what he looks like, decides she loves him and is willing to give up everything and everyone to join him on land. Except what if Eric didn't love her back? She didn't think of that at all. That contract she signed would have resulted in her being under Ursula's control if that had come to pass. Oscar the Grouch. As a kid I thought he was mean. Now I get it. Just leave me the F alone. Go Oscar. Nani from Lilo and Stitch. As a kid, I thought she was temperamental and way too harsh. As an adult, it's obvious that she's a young woman in a really tough situation who, if anything, is handling things remarkably well. Mr. Moseby from Sweet Life. As a kid, I thought he was an uptight buzzkill. As an adult, I see that he's just trying to do his job and these little shoots keep getting into trouble. Mojo Jojo. I too get mad whenever a kid keeps on interrupting my business. As a kid I identified with Lisa Simpson. A few years ago I realized that I'm Marge. I don't say anything about the nonsense I'm surrounded by, instead I just make that grimacing noise and try keep going on. The Baroness from The Sound of Music. Of course she is going to be insecure when her fiance is clearly in love with a younger woman he has known like 3 days. And it made me annoyed when the captain proposed to Maria before the Baroness probably even had time to leave the property. She didn't even react badly to the breakup, either. Given the situation, she actually handled things with some degree of grace. The only really bad thing about the Baroness was that she didn't like kids, but that's kind of more on the captain than her. He's the one who had the obligation to the kids, so he should have prioritized finding someone who would be a good stepmother. Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince. As a kid he was a harsh jerk, always ruining Will's day. As an adult I see he's a caring parent trying to help Will grow into a success. Bert. You wanna be Ernie as a kid, but life makes you a Bert. Josh from Drake and Josh. I did not despise him, but he was just boring to me, I guess. Now I fully understand him wanting to be a smart, responsible young adult and not being able to stand Drake's constant stupidity and Megan's terrible pranks. Dr. Doofenshmirtz. You just feel bad for him and respect how he's such a good father considering his awful childhood. Molly Grew from The Last Unicorn. Where were you 20 years ago? 10 years ago? How dare you? How dare you come to me now, when I am this? I used to hate her for yelling at the unicorn as a kid. Now it makes me tear up. I totally get it, Molly. Look at how our leaves turned out. How bitter it feels. If only something magical had visited our leaves when we were young and still had hopes and dreams. I get it. Red, Eric's dad from that 70s show. All those kids were dumbasses. Uncle Owen being hard on Luke resonates with any kid whose parents didn't let them have their way, but the dude took in a child no questions asked and was just overprotective. Because to his knowledge being a Jedi, a life of adventure in general, killed his stepbrother. Ariel's dad. Girl, you are 16, sit your ass down. I always thought Pete was a total killjoy in Shaun of the Dead. Then I began to agree with him on everything, especially with how much of a deadbeat Ed was as a roommate. Boromir. I remember when Fellowship of the Ring came out I told mum in the theater at the end that I was glad Boromir died. He was a bad man. It's only now as an adult that I realize how much the ring can pull and control you. How he knew Mordor's armies were attacking and that the ring could be used to stop that. He also was fighting for his little brother and for his shooty father. It doesn't entirely excuse him, but the situation is more nuanced than I understood when I was younger. Squidward. I didn't despise him, but I didn't like him. Now as an adult I realize I would be much worse than him if I had to deal with SpongeBob. Benson from Regular Show. As a kid I hated him for his bad temper and being mean to the main characters. But now I understand that his anger is usually justified since the park is his responsibility and Mordecai and Rigby really are destructive and lazy. Also, as I grew up watching the show, I realized his bad temper lessened in the later seasons with some good character development. The older sister from Even Stevens. The dad from Elf is just trying to keep his job and put food on the table while a deranged madman claiming to be his adult son from the North Pole uproots his and his family's leaves. Walter Hobbs was no saint, but like, come on. Most people would have been just as rattled and frustrated. Rahul from Phantom of the Opera. He just seemed so plain and boring. The Phantom was tragic and misunderstood. Now it's completely flipped. The Phantom was not misunderstood. He was grooming a child and Madame Jiri was in complete support of it. Rahul was definitely the hero and the right fit for Christine. The Trix Rabbit and the Lucky Charms Leprechaun. Dudes just wanted to eat their cereal in peace. Goddamn kids ruining everything. Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace. Poor motherfricker. Zazu from The Lion King. Simba was on course to make a terrible king and no amount of catchy ass songs can disprove that. The Grinch. Helga from Hey Arnold. As a kid, I thought she was a total itch. As an adult, Hey Arnold is one of my favorite comfort shows. I feel bad for the poor girl. She had an alcoholic mother, an a-hole father, and lived in her sister's shadow. I also loved that they had an episode where she went to therapy. Hey Arnold was ahead of its time in some ways. I didn't despise him, but I thought Calvin's dad from Calvin and Hobbes was so mean as a child. But as an adult, I relate more to him and think he's my favorite character. The lawyer from Jurassic Park, the original movie, who threatens to shut the park down over safety and is the first person eaten by the T-Rex. He may have been a weasel, but he was right all along, and probably the most sensible person in that group. I don't know if anyone else has already mentioned, but Mr. Wilson from Dennis the Menace, the kid was super annoying. Todd and Margot Chester in Christmas Vacation. Holy frick, could you imagine living next to Clark? All they wanted was a nice, quiet holiday break, and they worked hard to earn it. Ice King from Adventure Time. Saw it for the first time at around 12 years old. I grew up as I watched his backstory as an adult and feel sad, because he was just alone and mentally ill because of the crown. Taught me that there is a lot going on behind the surface, so I shouldn't be too quick to judge. Squidward. I'm problematic king. Serena Usagi from Sailor Moon. I hated her as a kid, but I totally get her now. I just wanna eat and sleep too. And if monsters are attacking Tokyo, then that's a monster's problem. Tom the cat. Jerry was a little shoot all the time. Most fathers in TV and movies. The transition to adulthood occurs when you stop relating to Ariel and start relating to King Triton. I always made fun of Meg from Family Guy when I was 8, but now I feel bad for her being the only person in the show who gets bullied, teased and has no one to talk to. Grouchy Smurf. Lois from Malcolm in the Middle. Emily Gilmer from Gilmore Girls. I understand her so much better now in my late 30s than I did at 15. Hank Hill. To my child self, he was a boring hothead. He followed too many rules. He stifled everyone's adventures. He took his job too seriously. He took life too seriously. As an adult, I love Hank. I want to be Hank. He is a reliable employee. He is responsible. He takes pride in his home. He cares about his community. He just wants the best for everyone. Candice Flynn. Karen from The Office. Yes, I love Pam and I love her and Jim together, but Karen had every reason to hate Pam and be upset at the situation. Also, I'm pretty sure Jim just ditched her in NYC the day him and Pam went on their first date. I'd be pissed too. Eeyore. Dolores Umbridge. Just kidding, I still hate that woman with every fiber of my being. When I was a kid, I hated the Kanker sisters in Ed, and Eddie because of their obsession with the Eds. Now, I've grown to understand the psychology of said obsession, ranging from abandonment to basically being outcasts from amongst the other kids in the cul-de-sac and still hate them. Squidward. Man just wanted some peace and quiet. He barely makes any money and hardly makes minimum wage as a cashier. Here I am, about to graduate, working a job as a cashier, getting yelled at for just doing my job. I can't do anything about it and I am not allowed to quit. All I ask for is peace and quiet and all I hear is people calling my name and complaints from customers. When I was an idealistic teen, I hated George Costanza. Now, I am George. Wendy in The Shining. As a young teen I couldn't get past the fact that she wouldn't just leave that abusive pose. Obviously as an adult I'm now much more aware of the cycles of abuse and what causes people to remain in abusive relationships. Shinji Ikari. For God's sake, he's just a kid with lots of trauma, desperate for validation. Stop treating him like he's a 40 years old battle-worn Marine.